Hi there everyone, Lars here with another Owl House review, brought to you by Camille's Harem. Not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers. Because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends, and I think it's time that we change the opening credits to the show because we have a whole new main character. Everyone, I want to introduce to you Hunter. It is official, he is now the best character in the whole series. Disney, let's get on that. We need to start changing up the merch. Oh yeah, wait a second. You guys don't have any merchandise for the Owl House? Come on already! Look at this sweet boy. This guy needs his face on a mug, on a t-shirt. We gotta get this guy some therapy. Come on. Hunter is the best. And really, that's what we learned from the newest episode, Any Sport in a Storm. Hunter really is probably the Owl House's new main character. Okay, I know I'm blowing a little bit out of proportion right here, but honestly, this episode was amazing. I love that it's centered primarily on Hunter, and really this character, this guy, he needs it. There's a lot of character development that he's got to go through, and really, this episode started him off on a really great path. I brought this up earlier when Season 2 premiered and we first got introduced to the Golden Guard. I loved how he was introduced. We get this snarky, villainous character, and each episode in which he heavily features, we see that Hunter has gone from a villain to a redeemable character full of amazing qualities that are just waiting to come out of the crazy, weird, warped knot that Bellows has tied him into over the years. And I love that it's other characters who haven't been getting enough screen time who are the ones to bring it out of him. Now, the story for this episode is pretty simple. Bellows is off doing crazy Titan Day of Unity things, so he appoints Hunter to go and watch over the Coven heads, who quickly take the cue to realize, wait a second, the Emperor's not here. Day off! Yes! And Darius puts Hunter on this little side quest to go and round up some new recruits for the Emperor's Coven, who are really not needed. The Emperor's Coven is already packed to the brim with willing soldiers. Really, Darius just wants Hunter out of his gooey hair, but also Darius is upset that Hunter dares to wear the symbol of the original Golden Guard, someone who Darius really looked up to. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later, what's fascinating about Darius within this episode. So Hunter goes to Hexside to go recruit a whole bunch of students. He gets to meet Willow, and he decides, or he's basically tricked into it, to join up with a whole new sport and recruit people for Willow's team, but really he thinks that he's just gathering up people for the Emperor's Coven. He becomes friends with the team, he betrays them, and then realizes the depth of just what he's done. He goes and he rescues them from Darius, earning Darius's respect, and also earning a whole bunch of friends along the way. Meanwhile, Luz and Amity try to find the author for their wonderful Azura books, and of course, hijinks and shenanigans ensue. Whew! It just sounds like another day at the Owl House, doesn't it? Well, there's actually a whole lot more going on here than really meets the eye at first watch. I had to go back and just really take this episode in to fully appreciate what is going on here. This episode was packed full of references, little side stories, and tons of insight into tons and tons of characters within the Owl House. Honestly, I could probably spend like an hour or more just going over all of the amazing things that we get to see here in this episode, but then it really wouldn't work out for a good review. If anyone does want me to do an hour's diatribe worth on just one episode of the Owl House, please let me know, and please don't say it, because I'll do it and I'll hate myself for it. There's some things that I really want to get to with Hunter. And a lot of the people have been focusing, mostly jokingly so, but they've been focusing on what really appears to be Hunter's trauma within this episode. It's clear that this kid has not had a good upbringing, and that he views everything through the political lens of the Emperor's Coven. This kid has been raised on backbiting, backstabbing politics, brutal ways of murdering people, manipulating people, and just doing awful things, all in the name of the Emperor. This kid is obsessed. He is the perfect servant to Emperor Bellows. And yet, beneath it all, There is a desire to be genuinely loved. Whether or not Hunter realizes it, he is alone within the coven, and he is not being given the proper love that he really needs. And here in this episode, he begins to get that. He gets respect. He gets friendship. He gets genuine, friendly love from other people. And it shows because he's suddenly willing to really turn his back on the Emperor to do what he knows is right. And in previous episodes, we've seen that Hunter is willing to do what he believes is right, but he's always serving the Emperor. And this is the first time that Hunter is serving himself. And I think it's really important to point out here, like I said earlier, that it is the side characters who bring this out from Hunter. Because when we look at characters like Luz, Amity, Ida, Hooty, and King, all of them would not be willing to give Hunter the chance. Not even Luz. Because Luz looks down on Hunter. She sees him as this poor, broken fellow. And his pride that he's been raised on, if he should hear that, he would immediately reject it. Hunter and Luz have a connection in terms of their love for magic and of their brilliance, but if he were to have this conversation with Luz, especially after learning from Ida and Amity how Luz looks down on him, oh no, Hunter's not going to have any of that. Hunter and Amity also don't get along with each other. They don't trust each other. And Hunter sees Ida, King, and Hooty as enemies of the Emperor. There is no way for them to bridge the gaps between each other. As a result, none of these characters can truly reach out to Hunter as he was. And I'm going to emphasize as he was, because after this episode, the first important bridge on the path to Hunter really redeeming himself has actually been built. And now there are important connections that can be had to help Hunter connect with the denizens of the Owl House towards what we hope will be a happy conclusion. So it's very important that I emphasize that it is Willow who's able to first reach out to Hunter, because when Hunter really openly admits that he's just seen as half a witch because he doesn't have a proper bile sac, he can't use magic, well then Willow immediately takes to that because she was seen as an untalented witch. She is a very powerful witch, but because she was put into a group of classes, into a study that she wasn't cut out for, everyone looked down on her and everyone made fun of her, which affected her self-confidence. And as we know, when it comes to the magic of the Boiling Isles, intent is important. And her intent wasn't there because her self-confidence wasn't there. So Willow broke down and she was seen as half a witch Willow. And here we have a literal half witch who is looking for any kind of way to prove himself. And that there's just this beautiful connection of misunderstood souls right here. And Willow reaches out to him because she now has that confidence. She's able to do something that she wouldn't have been able to do before. And she reaches the hand of friendship to Hunter. And even though he doesn't really want it, she takes it because she realizes that this is someone who needs it, just as she needed Luz's friendship to help her become a better person. Then, of course, we've got Gus going on right here, and one would think that the way that Gus treats Hunter at first, that this would mean that their relationship would just absolutely fall apart. But because Gus proves himself when he seems like such a nincompoop, Hunter immediately takes that because he's like, wow, I'm someone who everyone looks at as untalented. I have to fight so hard to prove myself, and here this guy's proving himself to me. I'm going to give this guy a chance. Gus has won Hunter's approval, and because Hunter really does what he can to support Willow, he also wins Gus's approval. Now, it might not be the most healthy start to a relationship, but it is a start, and so long as Gus doesn't realize who Hunter is, he just thinks that he's Caleb, then it is a fantastic start to a good friendship. And also, I just really love how characters like Skara and Rainey take in Hunter, and that they just show him affection and friendship. despite the fact that they hardly know him. This goes to show that these characters have also really improved from their days as isolated weirdos or as people at the top of the popularity totem pole who looks down on everyone else. They have grown as well, and they are sharing the fruits of that growth with Hunter. Now that, at least to this point right here, I really want to know what on earth happened between Jerbo and Rainey, because, yeesh, something happened there. I want to know what went on. At the same time, I'm kind of scared to know what went on, but I really need to know what happened right there, because, come on, these two were friends, outcasts. What happened that made them kind of go their separate ways? And now that they've all played together, they've all played this fantastic derby game, and we now have the Emerald Entrails, which is a fantastic name for a team. There's just so many great possibilities for this right here. Like, if this were a series that was going to get a proper season 3, come on, Disney, why do you have to rob us like this? If this were getting a proper season 3, I have no doubt that the Emerald Entrails would make at least 1 or 2 more appearances just to show how amazing this band is, how this group of misfits have come together and have formed a quick, valuable friendship for everyone in this group. And because I know which fan base I'm dealing with right here, I know that there's a ton of shipping going on here in this episode, and not just the Lumity bits either. So I've taken upon myself to figure out what on earth the shipping name should be for Hunter with the rest of the Emerald Entrails. Yes, I know, this is weird, but I'm doing it anyway. So allow me to introduce the new ship, Shrug. Yes, it's Shrug. When you put all of their names together, at least the first letters of their names, it's Shrug. I know, weird. But it's a weird ship for a weird fan base. We all love it. We're moving on. So like I said earlier, because of these new friendships, Hunter is able to do something that he's never done before, and that is really stand up to the will of Emperor Belos. While he has, as I've said, he's done what he believes is right, which has sometimes gone against the wishes of his uncle, he's always remained true to the Emperor. And yet for the first time, he goes completely against what he's always believed to do what is right by his new friends. This is great character development for Hunter, but it also reveals something very, very interesting. In the fight with Darius, we get a couple of things going on right here. We immediately see that there's no stopping Darius. Darius is a very powerful character, but also, if we're paying close attention, it's clear that he's taking it easy on the kids, which is revealed that he was doing so. He was just going to drop them off again at Hexside. And this is fascinating because I thought that Darius was just a lowlife. He was an awful being. And yet he's proven himself very insightful and even to a point caring. And it's clear that his dismissive attitude towards Hunter is because he thinks that Hunter is just the lackey to Emperor Belos. But here Hunter proves himself his own individual person. And Darius respects that. I would love to know what the relationship was between the old Golden Guard and Darius, because there's something fascinating going on there. Darius is a very interesting character. He shows way more autonomy than the other Coven heads. He has shown immense brutality and cruelty, and yet there are things that he values, and not just things that are just to him, very selfish parts of himself, but that he's honestly willing to look out for other people, even Hunter. And Hunter has earned that respect by standing up to him, by standing up to the Emperor, and doing something that Darius recognizes is good. This is fascinating right here because this goes to show that many of the villains that we're going to be dealing with later on down the road are not all one-dimensional beings. They're not just flat characters in a cartoon. In fact, they are multidimensional. They have their own personalities, their own backgrounds, their own histories, which make them complicated. And as such, there is a ton of possibility for just great things to happen down the road, which is again why we need a complete 3rd season to fully flesh out all of the beautiful things that Dana Terrace and her crew have been working on, because it's clear that the Owl House has so much still to offer with its characters. And if you don't believe me about that, I mean, I've already brought up Team Emerald Entrails. When you break down each one of those characters, it's clear that they've gone through their own personal journeys up until this point. But also, if we pause at one point as Darius is flipping through Pentagram, we see that Ida is still reaching out to Rain right here, and Rain is ignoring her. And we also see how some of the other Coven heads are kind of off doing their own thing. There's something really interesting going on here. We have some neat character dynamics going on. Also, the members of the Emperor's Coven are very much their own people, like Steve right here. They're not just cannon fodder to be thrown at the enemy. No, once again, all of these characters have their own autonomy, their own individuality, their own backgrounds, their personalities. And that is, again, wonderful that a story like The Owl House is bringing that out. It makes everything way more nuanced, and it makes it far more clear who our real villains and our real obstacles are. And it's everything surrounding Belos and his still unknown plans regarding the Day of Unity. Now then, let's get to the B-plot of this episode. So I enjoyed this, and at the same time, it kind of annoyed me. I think it annoyed me because there wasn't enough of it. It's the same exact thing as what happened in the previous episode when we've gotten to meet Ida's father. There's just not enough. I feel like there's a great story idea right here, but it just wasn't fully utilized. Again, it's a matter of pacing. But it's really great to see how Luz and Amity are trying to start up their own Azura club, as everyone else in the Boiling Isles at Hexside are setting up their own clubs and are trying to win students on over to them. And it just goes to show just how weird these two characters are at heart, which is awesome. It's adorkable. And I actually do really love how Basha tears into the Azura series. And really, there's something I just got to get into with this right here. The more that we've actually learned about the Azura books, suddenly it becomes very clear that these are books that really, really mesh well with the personalities of Luz and Amity, who, especially when it comes to Amity, who seemed like the cool girl and everything, she was above this all. Well, again, she is a dork. She is a nerd, and these are books for awkward dorks and nerds. The books have horrible cover art, as Basha points out, and I absolutely agree. And when she reads from it, oh my gosh, the purple prose within this book. And then Luz even admits that this is basically a series that was most likely self-published and has been self-promoted by an author who is actually not all that well known either in the Boiling Isles or on Earth. And as a self-published author myself, well, that kind of hits home in really actually all the best of ways, because it highlights something that is very, very real. Without a proper publishing support, without an established publisher, it is so hard to make a book what it really should be. It all comes down to you and your own resources. And not every author has the money to shell out thousands of dollars on all different kinds of character art, book art, and on editors to help make their books really, really good without the help of the establishment. And that's something that I've had to do as a self-published author. Why? Because I really love the stories that I'm writing, and I don't just want to churn out some garbage that's just awesome for me and maybe for one or two other people. It works really well for Luz and Amity, but if you're an author who wants to really go far, you've got to put in the sacrifices. Now then, I actually expect that after the Day of Unity, with whatever shenanigans are going to happen that are going to screw up the worlds, that we are actually going to meet Millard Featherwild, and that we're going to learn what's really going on here. I really want to know what's going on here, because now I'm invested in this horrible series of books. Just like Flippin' King. Just like King said, he's now been pulled into this horrible fandom. Into these horrible stories. I guess I am too. What does that say about me? Actually, really, what does it say about these stories? It says that even any story, no matter how well written or how well published, if it is made honestly from the soul of the author, that it will reach someone. And that is a wonderful sublime message within the story of the Owl House. When you actually look at the Owl House from beginning to end, sure, there's plenty of things that have been made to reach out to all these different kinds of people all over the world, but really this is Dana's story. This is the story that she wants to tell as best as Disney is allowing her to tell it. And so long as she gets to tell her story, that's enough. And if it reaches to other people and brings people together and makes them happy, then that's all the better. And really, there's no better feeling for a creator than to find out that something that you have made with the most love that you can is loved by other people. That's something that sends you over the moon. But of course, wrapping up this B plot, it all comes to a head when we realize, oh, it's all just a massive scam. What's going on right here? These books have probably fallen in through the dump, as other bookstores have been like, yeah, no, we can't sell these books either. No one wants them. And they have made their way on over into the Boiling Isles, where once again, no one but Amity or Luz wants them. And that's kind of funny right there. Once again, there's something here where, like, this is good Lumity fluff, but I feel like all of the story that we could really get into behind the Azura books is just not quite there yet. And it wasn't quite fully developed. But once again, we get to see where all these other characters are in their lives. And especially when we finally get to learn the name of the little nose demon, Tenela Noza. Oh, there's a name for you. We get to see what's happened when her whole stint as a best-selling author has come to an end. What has she been reduced to? She's been reduced to stealing the art of other creators, which again is something that creators have to deal with from time to time. So there's a whole lot going on in this episode. There's the subliminal messaging about the struggles of creators and their passions. And of course, we have all of the amazing stuff happening around with Hunter, but all the other characters as well. What we see here is a great culmination moment, not necessarily for plot stuff, which usually hits really hard, but rather what we see right here is a culmination of multiple character arcs coming together in just a really, really fun episode that hits all the right notes. This is honestly brilliant story writing, because you normally don't get this right here. A lot of authors, if they try to culminate multiple character arcs all at once, it feels very ham-fisted. It feels very forced. But when you watch Any Sport in a Storm, all of these different interactions between all of these characters who have gotten so much development, it all makes natural sense within the set plot of the episode. And that is really, really good to see. And again, that's something that's not very easily pulled off. It's really easy to take plot points for what is happening in the world and within your story and bringing it all together to a head. It's harder to do that with characters and not make it feel like you're just cramming them all into one space and saying, okay, now talk. In fact, there's not all that much talking within this episode where stuff is resolved through conversations. Instead, stuff is resolved through action. And again, that is very important for good character development. Characters develop the best as they act, as they do something, not by sitting down and being passive. Trust me, as someone who has tried to write great character development when characters are just sitting around talking, it becomes monotonous. It's so laborious and it is boring. It is far better to write characters evolving and becoming better through their actions. But I will say this, I understand why many novices try to go the first route, because it's easier. It's way harder to convey good character growth and depth through action. It requires a whole lot more nuance. It requires great economy of words. It requires great study. It requires a great eye to detail. And it requires a complete understanding of your characters and how they would act in certain situations and playing it out just right. That is a whole lot to balance. That is really hard to do. But with practice, any author can get to that point. Alright, so I believe I've said enough on the subject right here. Let me just close by saying we really need a Hunter fan club, because this boy, this sweet boy, deserves it. So, with that being said, if you would like to join the Hunters fan club, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel right here. And also, please go check out our other videos here on our channel. And you can also check out more of our writing advice over at our podcast, Camille's Harem, found on Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, the works. We also have writing exercises over at our Pinterest page for all of you lovely novice authors out there. And if you would like to join our community of authors, then please check out the links down below. We look forward to seeing you. And if you'd like to share your thoughts and your feelings and comments about this newest episode of the Owl House, please leave those down below. I look forward to reading them. And until the next video, y'all, join one of those clubs at Hexside and choose.